I call the meeting of the San Juan Unified School District Board of Education to order. The closed session items on tonight's agenda are conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 1, in two cases, Magali Kincaid, Benito Juarez Neighborhood Association, Neighborhood Elections Now, Juan Iniguez, Carolina Flores, Damaris Canton versus the San Juan Unified School District, complaint for violation of the California Voting Rights Act, and in the alternative, for violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the California Constitution. Superior Court Case Number 34, 2020, 00286475, and Carolina Flores, Neighborhood Elections Now, petitioners versus San Juan Unified School District, Paula Viescas in her official capacity of board president, respondents, verified petition for writ of mandate pursuant to the First Amendment, California Constitution, California Public Records Act, and the Ralph M. Brown Act, and complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. Sacramento Superior Court Case Number 34-2021-8000364-4-CU-WM-GDS. Item number 2 is collective bargaining matters, discussion with negotiator Kent Kern, Superintendent of Schools, regarding CSCA Chapter 127, General Operations Support, chauffeurs, Teamsters, Local Number 150, transportation, supervisors, teachers, and certificated supervisory units, and regarding non-represented groups, management and confidential units, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. And finally, one personnel matter, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, Superintendents Evaluation. Mr. Allen, will you please give instructions to those in attendance via Zoom on how they can raise their hand if they have a comment on the closed session agenda items?
Certainly, President Viescas, if you've joined us on the Zoom platform tonight.
Mr. Allen, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me now? That's not good. President Viescas, can you hear me now?
We're on a brief hold.
Testing 1, 2, 3. President Viescas. Test 1, 2, 3.
He's trying to talk, but
Please hold for some technical challenges. For those of you who've joined us, we are
President Viescas, can you hear me?
waiting for the opportunity for public comment on our closed session agenda items. Please bear with us.
he's trying.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, they are. We heard her microphone. We heard you in the very beginning when you first addressed her, but now we're not.
There is. It's very high over there too. Please. cherry pie and ice cream from our trees over there.
Okay, President Vasquez, let's try this one more time. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, the phone, but I'm afraid. Testing, testing.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? So if you have joined us on the Zoom platform today and would like to offer a comment on one of the closed session agenda items, now would be your opportunity to do so. You can do that by clicking the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen on your mobile device or on your desktop client. Or if you've dialed into the Zoom meeting tonight, you can press *9 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand. And President Vasquez, we do not have any hands raised at this time, nor do we have any written submitted comments for this item.
Okay, I just want to repeat that we don't have any public comments on closed sessions at this time. Can you confirm, Mr. Allen?
That is correct.
Okay. With that, we will now move into closed session and we will return to open session at 6:30.
The board is now moving into closed session. We will return to public session at approximately 6:30 p.m. You are welcome to stay on the Zoom meeting or the YouTube feed, or you are welcome to return at 6:30 when the board returns. Thank you.
I call the meeting of the San Juan Unified School District Board of Education back to order. The board meeting is taking place in the boardroom at the district office, safely, physically distanced, and aligned with state and local health guidelines. Public attendance is provided via the Zoom platform, as well as a live stream on the district's YouTube channel. The meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recording may capture sounds and images of those attending this meeting. The recording will be posted to the district's website. We thank you for joining us and ask for your patience as we use this format in an effort to maximize access and participation during this time of physical distancing and other restrictions. And at this time, I invite my colleagues and staff in the room to please stand for the virtual presentations of the colors by the Del Campo High School Air Force Junior ROTC.
Ready? Color, Dench, Hut. Gary, colors. Forward, arch. Left, left, left. Colors. Arch. Color guard. Alt. Present. Colors. Please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gary? Colors. Post. Colors. Colors. Colors turn. Arch.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Paula Viescas, Board President. To my right is Dr. Michael McKibben, Board Vice President. And to his right is Ms. Pam Costa, Board Member. To my left is Ms. Zima Creason, Board Clerk. And to her left is Mr. Saul Hernandez, Board Member. Superintendent Kern and other district staff are also in attendance. Before we begin, I'd like to review the two methods that are available to submit public comment for tonight's meeting. The first option is to submit a public comment online using the comment form located on the district website at www.sanjuan.edu/board-meeting. If you wish to submit a public comment on more than one agenda item, please submit a separate form for each item on which you are commenting. Comments received by 6 p.m. today have already been shared with all board members. Comments received after 6 p.m. tonight, including those submitted during the meeting, may be read depending on time restrictions. Comments may only be submitted on an agenda item up until the time that agenda item has been discussed. The second option is on the Zoom platform, where you can use the raise your hand feature. When you are called on, you may share a comment via audio during the meeting. Please note that all public comments are limited to 2 minutes or approximately 1,500 characters. With that, we are at item D, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes for May 11th?
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Costa. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Creason. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. We are now at item E1, staff reports. Superintendent Kern.
Thank you, Board President Viasquez, members of the board. With the anticipated changes related to COVID restrictions and the removal of the tiered system and other requirements, it is the intent of the board and the district to resume the process of moving to trustee area elections at a special meeting that will be called on June 15th. At our next board meeting on June 8th, Michelle Cannon from Lozano Smith will present the timeline for the board to complete this process. So again, we will be resuming the process of moving towards trustee area elections at a special meeting that will be called on June 15th.
Thank you, Mr. Kern, for your staff report. We are now at items E2 through E4. Mr. Allen, do we have any reports from our board-appointed district committees, employee organizations, or other district organizations?
We do have a report tonight from Heather Taylor with the Special Education Community Advisory Committee.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Taylor, for joining us. Please feel free to begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, President Viasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. My name is Heather Taylor. I served as chair this past year for the Community Advisory Committee on Special Education, known as CAC. I'm pleased to provide our board the first update from CAC in several years. I would like to share some background on CAC, our goals for this past year, and what we have seen trending for parent comments in CAC meetings. CAC is written into the Ed Code for the purpose of advising our administration about the special education local plan, annual priorities, parent education, and other related activities for students with special needs. Our goal for this year were to build the structure for the committee under the Brown Act and bylaws to create an effective advisory committee. We also sought to provide support and education to our community about needs and challenges within special education. In collaboration with the Department of Special Education, we hosted presentations at each meeting covering such topics as counseling, workability, equity, and universal design for learning. Some key trending areas of concern and comment this year from both member discussion and public comment have been in the following areas. Number one, Continued training prior to the start of each school year for CAC officers for Brown Act requirements, as well as ongoing support for the parliamentarian at all CAC meetings for the 2021-22 school year. Number 2, increasing public communication about CAC and outreach across all San Juan departments for CAC membership to increase engagement with families, staff, service providers, and elevate student voice. And 3, we've heard more discussion and concerns this year about child find activities, transition planning support, and inclusive education practices. We would love to continue those discussions guided by data on system performance and state indicators. A special thank you to Director Adelson and Ms. Gunn from the Department of Special Education for all your hard work to support the CAC this year, as well as the special education teachers and staff directly supporting our students with disabilities every day. CAC had a successful year because of your efforts. Also, a special thank you to Ms. Creason and Dr. McKibben for their guidance given to the CAC during our first year of transformation. We look forward to the continued collaboration between the CAC Board Liaison, Department of Special Education, and the CAC officers to ensure our committee remains supportive and to the lived experience and needs of our students we represent.
Thank you very much for your report. Any questions from my colleagues? Ms. Creason.
Not so much questions, but I just want to take a moment to really thank Heather. I mean, she's done a whole lot of work in a really hard time managing her own household, managing this committee. We talk a lot, outside of the board meetings, just to strategize and support each other really. And you really went above and beyond and you did a great job. I know that this job was a bit outside of your comfort zone. It was kind of new to you, but you did it and you did a great job and you saw it through to the end. So I just want to publicly thank you for that. Also, just very appreciative of the report in general. You came with some pretty solid feedback that came from the committee. So we would love the report via email so that the full board can have it. This is a board advisory committee. So really appreciate the advisement so we can, strategize what to do with all that. You and the committee members are the experts of your lived experience. And we will honor that and appreciate all of your feedback and time. So thanks for everything.
Thank you for your report. Thank you and have a great evening. And hopefully we'll see more reports from the CAC committee.
Thank you.
With that, we are at item E5 and there are no closed session actions to report at this time. So we will move to item F, visitor comments. Mr. Allen, will you please give instructions to those in attendance via Zoom on how they can raise their hand if they have a comment at this time?
Certainly, President Villescaz. This item is an opportunity for those individuals attending the meeting to offer comment on topics that are not on tonight's agenda. If your comment is related to an item on tonight's agenda, we would ask that you hold your comment until that item is called and public comment will be offered at that time. If you'd like to offer a comment on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda and have joined us on the Zoom environment, now would be the time to raise your hand. To do so, click the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen on a mobile device or desktop Zoom client, or by pressing *9 if you've dialed into the meeting tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have visitor comments at this time?
We do have 3 raised hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Okay, let's go ahead and begin public comment. We'll begin with our first commenter. And I can't see them on my end, so Mr. Allen, I'll ask for you to navigate us through that.
Give me just one moment.
Sure.
There we go. Our first comment will come from Magali Kincaid. Ms. Kincaid, when you are ready.
Thank you. Thank you for starting the meeting with an update regarding by district elections. It's been long overdue, since 2012, really, this discussion, and gets us closer to having local trustees and a voice in all of our neighborhoods. Despite the update, I continue to be incredibly disappointed and sad with the lack of equity, transparency, and accountability. On the anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, I ask you to address your 8-point commitment to educational justice. But I know that without clear and attainable goals, data to know if we are reaching those goals, or ongoing funding, I don't imagine that you've gotten very far. This lack of progress seems to be the pattern, not just with your racial justice initiatives, for example, the recent Rio Americano racial incident that happened, but your blatant refusal to agendize a discussion on adding 2 additional board members, 1 representative for each neighborhood, including Citrus Heights, and the other to focus on West Arden Arcade. A 7-member board and by trustee areas would get us closer to ensuring every unique neighborhood across the district has a voice. Students have been attending school in person now for several weeks with a full reopening planned in August. And it's really time to fulfill your promises and move forward. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment. Our next comment will come from Mr. Ben Avey. Mr. Avey, when you're ready, sir.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Ben Avey on behalf of the San Juan Parents Association, calling to express our strong support for by-district elections and specifically the development of 7 districts. We feel that setting 7 districts and having by-district elections is going to be the best way to truly capture and understand the local needs of local neighborhoods. Geographic disposition of these districts is key in that, so that people understand neighborhood issues. I can think of one issue right now where it would just be wonderful if, parents at an elementary school had their trustee that they could go to talk about an issue with the district, rather than not knowing how to navigate the situation, not knowing who to go to, not knowing who to call for help. It's unfortunate, and I just don't think that it's necessary. By-district elections is nothing new. It's been a requirement for a decade now, and I think it's time to just move forward really with great determination to get it done before the next election. It's possible. We need to do it. It's what's right for local parents. It's what's right for local students. And I just don't see any reason why we should continue to delay, especially in the fact that we do have the opportunity to do in-person engagement now. But, schools have been a big factor in virtual engagement. The district did a wonderful job on your equity outreach earlier this summer, and that same model could be used around getting community feedback for by-district elections. So we, on behalf of San Juan parents, urge you to move to by-district elections as quickly as possible. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment. Our next comment will come from Caroline Castaneda. When you are ready.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for allowing public comment today. I'm supporting Heather Taylor's comments. I'm the parent of an incoming freshman with her special ed placement as yet undetermined, as well as continuing students at Rotc and Del Campo, 2 of whom have IEPs. So I urge the board to move towards inclusion by ending segregated classrooms and conducting a meaningful implementation of universal design for learning practices, and to move towards special education as a service and not a place. Meaningful student and family engagement will give you some clues about the satisfaction level of our student body with special ed services. And your monitoring of the diploma rate for students with disabilities is critical. There are many studies that show educational attainment directly linked to income levels, and it is time to include the students with disabilities in our equity efforts that help them live the lives that they dream of. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment. And President Villescaz, that was the final comment at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen, and thanks to those who've joined us this evening. With that, we are at item G, the consent calendar. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments for items that are on the consent calendar?
If you've joined us tonight and would like to offer a comment on an item that is on the consent calendar, now would be your opportunity to do so by clicking that raise hand button. And seeing no raised hands, President Vasquez.
Excellent. Do any board members wish to remove any items from the consent calendar at this time?
Not removed, but I have a comment.
Okay, Ms. Grayson?
In regards to item G7, first I want to start by congratulating the 2 students that were recognized as Athlete of the Year. That's a fabulous recognition. I'm hoping in the future we consider inclusion of our non-binary students. This is very specific to a male, female. So I hope that we can explore other ways so we're more inclusive in the future.
Any further comments? Thank you, Ms. Creason. Is there a motion at this time to approve items G1 through G12? It's been moved by Dr. McKibben and seconded by Mr. Hernandez. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. And with that, we are at item I1, professional learning opportunities. Ms. Schnapp, please begin when you are ready.
Good evening, President Vasquez, members of the board, Ms. Cunningham, and Mr. Kern. Providing professional development for staff during a pandemic has created a wide variety of challenges this year, to say the least. And we had to shift dramatically to support and truly listen to our end users as we began to plan for the summer. Typically, summertime serves as a powerful launching point for ongoing learning that extends throughout the school year. This year, the need to support the staff, classified, certificated, and administrators with unique issues related to COVID emerged as our top priority. Tonight, we will share with you some of the ways that we are leveraging summer months to provide a variety of offerings and formats to support staff, with deepening our knowledge around social and emotional supports, trauma-informed practices, curricular resources, social justice standards, as well as other key initiatives. Joining me tonight are Nicole Kukrow, who will be assuming the role of Director of PLI on July 1st, as well as Program Specialist Paula Bockham and our Equity Coordinator, Lori Vine.
Oh, there we go. Oops. We advancing the slide. There we go. Thanks. Thank you so much, Kristen. This summer is really unique in that we have an unprecedented level of summer programs for students happening in our schools, which many of our practitioners are participating in, as well as you know. We also have the exciting opportunity for the Expanded Learning Opportunities Plan that will be playing a significant role in the coming school year. And so, of course, we wanted to use this summer to prepare for that work and set us up for success with that. Oh my goodness, here we go. One thing that we heard from our practitioners very clearly is that they wanted options for summer learning this year. And that's really because many of them, as you again know, are going to be supporting those student programs at schools. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were listening to their needs and offering a lot of flexibility. So that's why this summer we'll be offering professional learning in a variety of formats, including both synchronous and asynchronous experiences, as well as virtual and in-person options. One of our most popular summer options are our book studies that we offer. These are asynchronous experiences where our staff has an opportunity to read a book, collaborate and discuss with others. You can see here a sampling of many of the titles that we'll be experiencing this year and offering this summer. These titles really address a lot of our needs, from instructional practices to our social justice work to social emotional support and also student engagement. Many of them also represent collaborative opportunities between departments, which is also really, really exciting. We're also excited to support a variety of staff in our system this summer. So not only will we be supporting our practitioners who provide direct services to students and provide services in instructional support roles, we'll also be able to provide support for our administrators and our classified staff. For our practitioners, we're offering a lot of professional learning opportunities that address instructional strategies, that support a co-teaching model, that support them in social emotional learning and trauma-informed practices. And so we're very, very excited to be offering a wide range of activities that, again, set us up for success with the ELO plan. And recognizing that we'll be offering many new practitioners into the system, our system of professional growth team is getting ready to offer a really robust offering of professional learning supports so that we can welcome those staff and really ensure their success in our system as they move forward. For our administrators, we're supporting a lot of work around, again, instructional strategies, because we know that as the instructional leaders at their schools, they definitely want to support the tremendous instruction that's happening with their teachers. We're also supporting them through offering options that will allow them to be responsive to the social emotional needs of our students. One example of some instructional work that our administrators can engage in is the ability to attend our science professional learning, because as you know, we've adopted exciting new science materials in our elementary grades, and our administrators will certainly have the opportunity to participate in that. We'll be offering them support for their co-teaching model that will be offered at several schools, and other supports, again, to address the social emotional well-being of students. Again, one of the really exciting opportunities for our staff with the ELO plan is the welcoming of many new classified staff into the system in instructional assistants who will be supporting not only our early literacy or early learning classrooms, but also in special ed and through a bilingual capacity. So we are still planning the supports for those new staff that are entering the system, but we certainly plan on supporting them in English and math, and again, in other social emotional supports. That support will begin this summer and continue throughout the school year as well. Our special ed department, in concert with our equity department, is also offering a lot of options this year in terms of co-teaching and in terms of, again, supports for that social emotional well-being related to de-escalation training and also alternative and inclusive practices. At this time, I'm going to invite Paula Backham, Program Specialist for Science and Health, and Lori Vine, our Coordinator of Equity and Student Support, to share some of the work that they're doing this summer in a couple of key areas, specifically our social justice work and our elementary science launch. Paula, go ahead.
Hi, typically with a new core content curriculum adoption like elementary science, we would host a large in-person professional learning event. But given the continued concerns around COVID, approaching it in the traditional way wasn't an ideal option. So in order to consider the variety of needs, we solicited feedback from our practitioners on their preferred format, dates, and time of day for learning. Based on the feedback, and you can see just a snippet of it in this survey, from over 200 teachers, we developed a plan for professional learning that includes flexible options for a mostly virtual learning opportunity via Zoom, together with asynchronous learning components, or an in-person learning option as well, because that was about 20% of our practitioners really wanted to have an in-person learning experience. All of the synchronous sessions will be offered during either a morning or afternoon timeframe, and this will allow our teachers to plan around summer programs they might be teaching or other summer commitments they may have. We are also scheduling additional grade level collaborative planning sessions led by pilot teachers or our TOSAs. And I will hand it off to Lori Vine, who will provide some additional information about the social justice PD.
Thanks, Paula. Good evening. In looking at how we continue our racial, social justice, and equity work, and in planning our professional learning for the summer, we tried to be responsive as well to the wants and needs of our practitioners. We are offering sessions based on feedback that came out of the exit ticket from our final equity PD of the year and other feedback we've received throughout the year. Our equity liaisons will be offering some sessions like the ones listed on the slide, and we will continue to partner with Epic Education and offer 18 individual self-paced online modules. Finally, as Nicole mentioned earlier, we will be offering several book studies, and in collaboration with special education, we'll be offering a variety of training around inclusive behavior support. And now I'll hand it back to Nicole.
Thank you so much, Lori. As we engage in this robust schedule of summer learning, we'll certainly be collecting feedback from our practitioners along the way in order to plan meaningful, differentiated professional learning to continue the work throughout the school year. We're very, very excited about it. And at this point, President Villescaz, I'll open it up to any questions the board may have.
Thank you, and thank you to the team for the presentation. Before we turn it to my colleagues and the board, I'm going to check in with Mr. Allen. Do we have any public comments on this item at this time, Mr. Allen?
We have not had any comments submitted for this item. If you've joined us on the Zoom call, we would remind you that now would be your opportunity to click that raise hand button at the bottom of your screen on a mobile or desktop device, or *9 if you've dialed into the call tonight and would like to offer a comment on this item. And seeing no hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Okay, thank you very much. I will then turn it to my colleagues. Do any board members have questions or comments at this time? Mr. Hernandez.
No question. I just want to thank you for the report and the thought and process that's gone into it. And again, more than anything, just appreciation and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Creason? Oh, I'm going to go this way. Sorry, Ms. Creason. Go ahead. Yeah.
I just appreciate the report and just a couple of comments. I really appreciated the call out that we're going to have a lot of new staff joining the team. And it's really exciting that there's, a robust support, that they can walk into and dive into. It's really great to hear that. And also I love the last slide. And I know this team does this a lot, but I just want to comment on it, that there's always room to adjust. There's always room to morph, and that's not a failure. That's just growing. I mean, it's just beautiful. So I'm really excited about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to continue in dais order. Dr. McKibben.
Just a couple of questions. Thank you for the report. There's a lot there and so forth. I just had a couple of areas I wanted to ask about. In terms of the reading items that were in slide 4, is that being done as book clubs? How are the different ways that the books are being pursued?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically we offer those as asynchronous opportunities, meaning that staff who's facilitating these book studies will build questions, discussion prompts that are released through a particular platform such as Google Classroom. Staff have the opportunity to engage in discussion kind of, like I said, in an asynchronous manner, kind of offline, as they can fit that into their schedule. And then typically we also have some synchronous sessions where the team may meet on Zoom or in person to discuss other items. So it's very similar to a book club, yes. But I will say one of the things that we really focus on is not just what did you learn from the book, but also how are you taking the learning into practice. So that's always something that is folded into all of our book studies.
On slide 8 related to classified employees, I'm also looking at it, noting that on I3 there's going to be more on this, but it appears that classified employees, particularly instructional assistants, are going to have a great deal more responsibilities than they have had in the past. Can you tell me what the professional development, the training is likely to look like for classified employees, and how might it be different or the same as for certificated employees?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think we're still in the planning stages for the instructional assistants, so I don't have a lot of details to share tonight, but I can certainly follow up with you at a future time when we have plans more solidified. But what we've been really doing right now is collecting input. I know that the principals have offered some input in terms of what they need from instructional assistance. We've also been brainstorming with our content teams, specifically in ELA and math, about potential ways that instructional assistants could support the work that's happening in those areas in the classroom through a variety of instructional strategies. And so I anticipate that the professional learning will look similar to, of course, our classroom practitioners, our certificated staff, but really focusing on what is the role of instructional assistants in supporting the learning that's happening. And so again, like I said, that is still kind of in the planning stages, but I'm happy to follow up with the board once we have a few more details to share.
Okay, thank you. That will be interesting to hear. And
Oh yeah, I think,
yes,
sorry,
please.
Dr. McKibben.
In addition to supporting in the classroom, we're also looking at how to leverage the IAs to support with tutoring. So we also want to have the training available to support them with those key areas in math and ELA, especially related to our iReady programs, so that they can use the data and use those platforms to support with those interventions.
And then my last one, I noticed that you had plans for de-escalation strategies, and I found it particularly interesting with bus drivers, and that seemed like it was absolutely appropriate because on some of my ride-alongs and so forth, you could see that indeed the bus drivers are more than somebody who has his or her hands on the wheel and so forth. Have we had a lot of de-escalation training in the past, or is this, and who has provided it?
I'm going to defer to Lori Vine on this question. I know that she's been working in collaboration with the special education department around this and has done some de-escalation work in the past. So Lori, do you have details to share with Dr. McKibben at this time?
Sure. Yeah, we've been offering de-escalation training through Therapeutic Crisis Intervention Training, TCI, for well over a decade now. But it has historically come through the Department of Special Education, and we are really trying to work together to offer these skills and these strategies to all of our practitioners, because really everyone needs to know how to de-escalate a situation on a campus, and not just teachers and IAs, but also front office staff, bus drivers. So we are really trying to create a baseline understanding of the needs that kids have and how we can better address those needs through our behavior management strategies. And so it's been a great partnership with special ed, and we're looking forward to being able to offer de-escalation to families as well. That's on the books for next year. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Ms. Costa.
First, thank you. It is a very comprehensive plan. And Lori, I am so excited that you're expanding the de-escalation training. I agree with you. It goes across the system. So that's really exciting, and hopefully maybe even to students that might be doing some tutoring as well. When I looked at slide 8 and I thought of the number of classified employees that we have potentially to hire, and although we hope to have them all hired by the first day of school, I think perhaps it will take a little time. So are there plans to videotape live presentations, in-person presentations, so that new hires would have access to that? Or how will we provide training as people come on board?
That's a great question. And again, we haven't gotten far into the details yet, but that's certainly a fantastic idea. Additionally, we also recognize that not all of our classified staff will be hired prior to the first day of school. And so we certainly don't plan to stop this summer with offering professional learning, and we'll offer those opportunities throughout the year as well for staff that come on a little bit later into the year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I also do appreciate the very specific call outs to our different employee groups. It's really nice to be able to just see it in very specific slides and kind of buckets. And I also want to just express an appreciation for the expansion of the de-escalation training outside of kind of just cohorting it in special ed. And so I had a question. I noticed that it wasn't on the administrators or practitioners slide, but I'm assuming that's not because we're not expanding it there. I was just wondering if you could speak to a little bit of either what's already there, particularly for administrators, or where we might be looking to expand later.
Thank you. Again, I think I'll defer to Lori on that one because I think she probably has more info to
She looks
share.
ready to go.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to jump right in. We actually do have a de-escalation training plan for administrators this summer, as well as 4 cohorts of TCI, which has the 6-hour de-escalation embedded in. So there is definite intentionality around making sure that administrators have an opportunity to have this training.
Thank you. Thank you for confirming that. I knew that just because it wasn't on the slide didn't mean it wasn't happening. So this is kind of the highlights reel. So I know that it's very expansive. So really appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this and for the report. I'm going to do one quick last check to see if there's any further questions or comments. Seeing none at this time. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And with that, we are at item I2, the Camp Winters update. Ms. Schnapp.
Good evening again. Environmental education programs have been conducted at Camp Winter since 1957. And while we've had to modify our offerings, I am pleased to report that Camp Winters will be open for the summer of 2021. Tonight, program coordinator John and Felice will share some of the highlights of the summer program, as well as some of the safety protocols that will be in effect for the summer.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me this evening. It's always nice to talk about camp. Sometimes we kind of live out there on the outskirts and we wonder if people know we exist up there at camp. So thanks for inviting me. First, just a little backdrop of Camp Winters. You know, the district bought, it was Arcade District at that time, bought the property back in 1957 for $4,000. And of course, that was the brainchild of Jim Winters, the namesake of camp. So, but you know, over 60 years ago, it was a raw piece of land, 80 acres of raw land. And if you go up there today, what you'll see is a very well thought out, well planned camp structure. We have 14 full standing cabins. We have 21 tent cabins, seasonal tent cabins. We've got a dining hall with a great commercial kitchen, a couple bathhouses, a science center. And we have a warehouse where we store all of our boats and our equipment. And we also have a full-on water treatment plant where we pull the water from the lake and treat it right there so that the kids and people who use the facility can drink the water there. So it's really quite a spectacular asset that we have. And I want to, show gratitude to the board and to Kent. I felt like I've always been supported in camp, and particularly during the pandemic. I felt that you always valued camp and want and see it as an asset, as a great asset that it is. So thank you for that support. Moving into our mission and in general, the mission of camps, I think if you think about the benefits, if you look into the benefits of a residential camp program, it's pretty well documented and it's pretty self-evident of what we do for kids. So you take kids from very diverse backgrounds, typically from the city, you bring them up into this totally new environment and you throw them together with a bunch of other kids and they have to live in a small cabin or in a tent together. They do a lot of activities throughout the course of the day. They're in this totally new wilderness environment. And it's really spectacular to see the team building and how a kid grows in just 1 week at camp. They're doing things like, it might be the simplest thing, but going into the bathhouse and having to brush your teeth with a bunch of 3 or 4 other or 5 or 6 other strangers. That's a big deal for a lot of these kids. So it really is a wonderful opportunity for kids to grow and develop in that short little week. It also, of course, it's one of their first opportunities at independence, first time that they're away from mom and dad, and we see a lot of that growth. Sometimes we'll have a kid who feels a little bit homesick, and we always try and coach them through that homesickness, and it's a great success when they make it through the week. I also think we do a service to the parents by allowing them to send their kids to camp and letting them let go a little bit and having their kid have this experience. So camps are great all the way around. In terms of specifically with Camp Winther, some of the things that I like to focus on for camp is that we provide it's truly experiential learning. You hear those terms a lot, experiential learning, hands-on learning, but that's really part and parcel of what we do at camp. So from drawing the string back on a bow to paddling a canoe to feeling the granite as you scramble up on some big granitic erratic. It's truly a hands-on experiential learning experience. They get a chance to learn how to build a fire, maybe cook over the open fire. So it is truly a hands-on experience. But some of the things I also think we focus on at camp that is sometimes it's not really explicit, but we really model what would be an active and healthy outside lifestyle. So from 7 o'clock in the morning when we're calling for polar bear and getting kids to go down to the lake and swim in the lake first thing in the morning before breakfast, to late at night, the sun is setting and they're hiking up to the top of Telescope Peak and they are doing some stargazing. So it's truly a very active, engaged week. We keep them busy as part of the plan. Of course, we keep them busy all week long. But we believe in it. I think myself and all the teachers and the staff that work up there, we believe in an active, healthy outdoor lifestyle and see the benefits that it has for people in their own personal lives. I also think that we help to build a lot of life skills while people are up at camp. A lot of things, I think, kids in general these days, but maybe always, if you haven't had the opportunity to be up in the wilderness and to go out camping and live that outdoor lifestyle, there's a lot of things that you don't think about. And so I feel like we give these kids these life skills. So every kid who comes to camp, before they get into a kayak or a canoe, they're going to learn that what do you do when you capsize? You always stay with the boat. And a little later during that week, when we do the swamp canoe race, you'll see that in action. It's like, oh, wow, this thing really does float, even though it's full of water. So those are valuable lessons for kids to learn. They learn how to build a fire, as I mentioned, cook over the open fire. We focus on things like the cardinal points. And so they're learning about wind directions and really getting to know their environment around them. So when it comes time to sleep underneath the stars or in the woods, and maybe they think about, well, they learn what a widowmaker is. And well, the wind's blowing this way. Maybe I should look up and see, is there a dead tree standing there? Maybe that's not a good place for me to lay my bedroll. So a lot of really practical, hands-on experiences that kids get in the 5 short days that they're at camp. Oh. I need to point it, I guess. Huh? Yeah, there we go. All right, new programs at summer. Last year, of course, we realized that moving forward, most likely we're going to need to have some sort of modifications for camp this year. And we decided to keep the numbers low. It was just less than 2 weeks ago that we actually got the guidelines from the state for how we can run a residential camp. So we knew that there was going to be guidelines and restrictions, and so we kept it small. This year, we're running at 45% of capacity, and our plan is to run 3 separate programs each week. So within a given week, we're going to have an outdoor skills camp. We're going to have either a nature art camp or a recreation sports camp, and we're going to have a venture base camp. And these 3 programs are going to be run completely separate. There'll be a separate bus for each of those programs. They'll be bused up to camp. One program will be staying in the tent cabin area. Another program will be staying over in the cabin area. And yet another program will be camping out the entire week down by the lake. So they'll be completely separate. Typically during our camp season, we then do evening activities and we bring all of these groups together for a campfire or for an evening hike or for a cookout. And this year we're gonna nix all of that. So each program will be doing all their own evening programs and staying separated. And we'll feel that impact to be sure. There's a lot of energy that comes when you get 125 kids that are joined together at a campfire, a lot of really good positive energy. And we're going to be missing that. But on the other hand, I think we have the opportunity to dive deep this year. So the kids are going to have an opportunity to really explore some of the activities that they like. And instead of maybe moving, only throwing or shooting 5 or 10 arrows, this year they'll have an opportunity to shoot 20 or 25. At the lake, I often go down to the lake to watch the boating, and you'll see it's they're almost like jellyfish sometimes. The wind is coming in, they're all drifting back into the cove because of the wind, or they're doing circles out there. So maybe this year with several different new sessions, they'll have an opportunity to really learn the skills of how to steer a canoe and how to steer a kayak. And we have thoughts of doing things like creating slalom courses across the lake and having races coming back. And so I think there is an opportunity this year for the kids to dive deep and learn a little bit more. That's the upside to having smaller groups this summer. We're still on that last page. If we can, I want to talk a little bit about the different programs. We're also creating some new programs in the sense that the Venture Base Camp is going to be a program that is, the kids are, they're the older kids, age 13 to 15. They're going to spend the entire time out of doors. They're going to cook all of their meals. They're going to set up a base camp. And each morning they'll receive their supplies for the day, cook their breakfast, clean up their breakfast, pack their lunch, and go on an adventure each day. So that's going to be a real learning experience for them. And it's really sort of a step program. So hopefully after that experience, we will say, well, maybe next year I can do the backpacking program and really go out on the trail for the entire week. We're also opening up a new program called Recreation Sports. And Recreation Sports is a program where they're going to be playing a lot of sort of backyard games and games like Frisbee golf, badminton, maybe some floor hockey, field hockey, a lot of different games and activities. Again, kind of going back to that, we want to promote a really active, healthy outdoor lifestyle. And also understanding that a lot of kids, a lot of people just, athletics, they weren't cut out for athletics. Or once you get past high school, a lot of times it's hard to continue in with a lot of athletic programs. And we're giving them the skills here to learn some of the different activities and games and sports that they can play on their own and with their friends. And then the Challenge Backpacking Program. If you go up to camp and as I have done and look in some of the back closets and the back corners of camp, you find some amazing stuff. We've got crates of crampons, and we've got dozens of snowshoes from back in the day and pitons for mountaineering. And I think the spirit of Jim Winters was always a spirit of adventure. And for me, it's really important that we always sort of maintain that element of adventure at Camp Winters. And it's been 20 years now, but this year we've decided to restart the backpacking program. And we're going to start small. We're doing 2 short weeks, 3-day programs, 2 nights, where the kids are going to be out on the trail, carrying all their own gear and relaunching the Challenge Backpacking Program. The idea is that hopefully in the future, we're going to be able to spread that out and do more weeks of the Challenge Backpacking. And then finally, music. We've had music forever up at camp, but I want to give a shout out to Micah Dugan and his team. They've been working real hard. They've got a lot of great ideas. Like, as you all know, music programs have been hit really hard with the pandemic, and they've got great ideas on how we can do chamber music with trios and quartets and smaller groups like that. They're also prepared for a whole year of kids, right, lost out on music this year. So if we get some newer beginners in the music program, they've got bucket drumming and ukuleles. And so really have been being creative and thinking about how we can manage this up at camp this year. And of course, they also know all the safety protocols. So they know about the bell covers and the different type of masks that you need for a woodwind or for a brass instrument. So I'm really pleased to have them as part of our team and leading up the music program this year. Some of the improvements this year. Last year, you all approved an online registration system. Thank you very much. This year, we had the opportunity to give that a try, and it's been great. There's been a few glitches here and there, but by and large, I'm really pleased with the online registration process. It's amazing the efficiencies that it brings to us as an operation. In the past, we would process 700, 800 individual checks and deposit those. Now we get 3 or 4 checks from the registration company, a lot easier to handle. We took all of those registrations and we would input them into a database. Well, now we've got that online database. So it's really saving a lot of time and energy and making us more efficient. It's also in online presence. This year, granted, we were only at 45% capacity, but this year we filled up in less than a week. The moment I started opening up registration, there were literally people signing up at the same time. People were hungry for this experience. So, that's a good problem to have. And we have, like I said, 45% of capacity. So that's around 290 students this summer. I've got over 200 kids that are on the wait list. There's a lot of people that want to go to camp. So looking forward to next year being able to open that up and let everyone into camp. The other great thing about the online registration is it's a database for us to analyze. We can take a look at the kids and where they're coming from and their age groups, and it's really an analysis tool, and it's a report tool. So now when we have the camp opening up the first week, and we want to take a look at what kind of dietary restrictions do we have for this particular week to pass on to the kitchen. Boom, click a button, run a report. So it's very easy to parse out various reports that can make us, a better camp operation, I think. Back on the site, yeah, as you know, last year we laid fallow, but we stayed busy and got some things done at camp in many ways. It was a great opportunity. Normally the summer is super busy, and we do a lot of weekend groups and fall groups, and the next thing you know, it's snowing up there. So in ways, there was a nice opportunity to get in there and do some work at the facility. And one of the big things that we did was do a continual process of course, trying to reduce the fuel load in the forest around us. So we did a lot of work at thinning some of the forest out in the camp property. And in that process, what we do is we create some breakout spaces. So a breakout space is a spot where a trail group, a nature study group can walk along and they can stop right there. They can teach a lesson. They can do an activity. They can have their lunch or what have you. So we've created quite a few new breakout spaces within the camp environment, and utilizing the resources that we have, those logs that we cut down in the process of thinning now become borders and seats and everything for the campers. So I'm here to report that camp is looking good and we're ready for action. Moving on to the challenge course, it's something else that's new that's going to be happening this year. I'm super excited about this. The challenge course, last year we were going to do this, but of course we couldn't. So we have Flint Builders, who I think they're Casa Roble, maybe. They were one of the bond construction companies, and they've wanted to give back. And they're going to come up in a couple of weeks, and we're going to build a challenge course. So in one of the areas that we cleaned out and thinned out, we created a trail behind the tent cabins, between the tent cabins and the flats, and we're going to have 6 to 8 new elements. And these are really low elements. There's nothing where you need to put on helmets or do anything like that. They're very simple team building, challenge building activities that we can do with kids and adults alike. And I think it's going to be a great new addition. And one of the activities that we're building here is the spider web. This is lots of fun. You have basically that web between 2 posts, and the challenge is to get the kids from one side to the other, passing them through the little openings without touching the string. So it's lots of fun. The other one that we're building that I'm super excited about is the whale watch. And the whale watch is basically a group teeter-totter. It's a big platform with a fulcrum in the center, and you can get 10, 15 kids on there, and their challenge is to balance that out. And once that's balanced out, then you can say, all right, I want all the girls on one side, the boys on the other side, or 2 kids on one and 8 on the other side. So you can teach them some elementary physics, but it's also a lot in team building. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a great addition to camp, having that challenge course. So a big shout out to Flint Builders for coming up. They're actually paying their employees to come up for one day and build that. And then the next day, we're going to have a little bit of a family barbecue. So it's going to be a great weekend. Also, on that note, I'd also like to give some recognition to McCarthy Construction and Excel Construction. They have both come up in years past to help build and do some projects at camp. And McCarthy has reached out to me, and we're planning something for the fall to build a new structure or do some sort of project that improves camp. So they've been a great asset to camp. And then moving forward to the future. Before we get to the future, I want to acknowledge a couple schools that already know what we've got at Camp Winters. And first, I want to talk about Leggett. So we've got Michelle Kuntz and Sarah Juan at Leggett, and they've been bringing their 6th grade class up for a decade or more, I think. They come up for one overnighter, and then they often go to Truckee for a challenge course activity. And a couple years back, they said, rather than the parents bringing up all the food and catering and all this is a big hassle, why don't you guys cook for us? And so we did. We cooked dinner for them. And the next year after that, they're like, that was pretty smooth. Why don't you guys just go ahead and do breakfast for us as well? So now they're coming up, they're not bringing any of their food, they're camping out, and they're going down to Truckee the next day to do their challenge course activity. And of course, my hope is that they decide to stay and do their whole experience at camp and do our challenge course and have it all up at Camp Winters. But that's an opportunity, and that's a school that's been utilizing the site and know the value of our site there. Another school that uses our site is Persian Elementary. So Tisha Rugg brings her the entire sixth grade class up and for a day. The parents drive them up, they pack their lunch, they go for a hike, they have a great day. It costs them nothing, and it's a great way to get out of the class for the day, be active, and learn in a new environment. So as we move forward with Camp Winters, I think our summer camp program, the 6-7 weeks that we have of program, is really well established. Kids know about it. It's a great program, and it's solid, and that's what we do in the big part of the summer. But we've got August, and we've got September, and we've got often into mid-October, where the camp, in my opinion, is underutilized, and it's certainly underutilized by San Juan schools. So moving forward, I'm hoping that we can get more school groups to think about what they can do at camp. And I think back to one of the early pandemic meetings that I sat in on for the office folks, and I remember Kent saying, "I don't know what folks are doing anymore. Everything's changed. You know, we need to reimagine what we're doing, reimagine our positions." And so, you know, I took that to heart and I thought about that, and I'm hoping that moving forward, administrators and teachers from throughout the district kind of reimagine what they're doing, and when they're reimagining, if they think about, you know, Camp Winters, and maybe there's an opportunity up there. We can bring our class up there. We can do a club retreat up there. We can do a service project for high school students. There's all sorts of opportunities that can happen at Camp Winters. And so moving towards the future, I hope we see more San Juan schools utilizing the great site. That's all I have on Camp Winters, but I'm more than happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm going to check in for any public comments first, and then we'll turn it back to the board. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We have not had any comments submitted for this item. And if you've joined us on the Zoom call, now would be the time to click that raise hand button if you'd like to offer one. And we do have one hand raised at this time, President Viasquez.
Okay, as a reminder, public comments are limited to 2 minutes. Please go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Our first comment will come from Caroline Castaneda. When you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. And I just want to support the use of Camp Winters year round. And I ask the board to really dream big. This is really a fantastic opportunity to partner with our many community-based organizations that work throughout our district and extend opportunities for students who may not otherwise get to experience the outdoors and extend their learning in that very experiential and healthy way that was presented, part of the presentation. And also want to ask the board to consider, if it is not already the case, how is this an inclusive opportunity for students with significant physical disabilities? Thank you.
And thank you for your comment. President Viasquez, that was the only public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, see if there's any questions or comments. We'll begin with Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yep.
Thank you, John. That was outstanding. You made me want to go to camp. You're so just
Come on up.
watching you get excited, and that's great to see. John, you mentioned our kids go on and register, and I assume based on what you said, do they pay a fee?
That's correct.
Is that do they pay 100% of that fee? What is that amount?
Typically, it is 100%. This year, we were able to offer to San Juan students a 50% discount. So we did offer San Juan students that discount this year. Normally, in normal seasons, we offer like a $70 discount for kids that qualify for free and reduced lunch.
Okay.
But it is a fee-based program that we use those fees to pay for staff and supplies, and generally speaking, we're a self-supporting site.
Last question, you said you're at 45% capacity, and that equals 100, and I think you said 90 kids with that. So
We have
what you
about
said? It doesn't matter. My
Okay.
question is this, assuming that we were at full capacity, how many kids could go to Camp Withers during the summer?
A typical summer might have 700, little over 700 kids.
Wow.
And this summer, we're looking at about 290 or so.
And we anticipate next summer to be full?
I anticipate next summer we'll be at full capacity, yes.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Costa.
John, your enthusiasm is just fantastic. And I know it's going to make a big difference at camp, just like Mr. Rugg made a big difference at camp before you. And I'm sure Mr. Winters is looking down and thinking this is just what we wanted to happen. We have had so many community partners who've supported us with camp. And I think we'd be remiss without saying Carmichael Kiwanis has done an amazing job of providing support and would have this year, except the ELO grant money allowed us to provide wonderful scholarships. Music camp, I think, makes such a difference for our students, and having gone up and visited music camp several years in a row, it's an opportunity for our kids to really bond in a different way around music. So I'm thrilled to see that it's back again. We had a 1-year break, but we are going to have an exciting program, I know, and I thank you for being up there. And I hope we reimagine and have many opportunities for our students to go beyond just the summer. So thanks.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Creason.
I think we're all going to start with your enthusiasm is infectious and incredibly inspiring. And I feel like we're incredibly lucky to have you in leadership. You know, you're the right dude for the job. You know, it's just my heart. So it's very interesting that we just met and talked recently, and then you're showing up here. So that's awesome to be able to see your face. I'm really excited to visit the camp. I've heard a lot about it. I don't feel like I know enough about it. And so I'm excited to go and experience a day there myself. I would like to ask, how do students and families become aware of this incredible program?
Well, in the past, I've typically gone around to elementary schools and given presentations, but only a portion of the elementary schools. I would meet with the principals and say, please invite me to your school. And I would go and give a video presentation. Certainly that's what the Bill Rugg did for decades, for sure. It's more and more in the past few years, we've noticed that school's just crazy in May, right? There's all the testing and a lot of schools found it difficult to invite me in to take up an hour or two for their assembly. So that in the past, that's been the main thing. We are also moving forward in this new era of the communications department has been awesome at helping me out and creating flyers and doing electronic flyers. Reaching out to PTAs is something that we've tried in the past. And moving forward, I think there is going to be a little bit more of this electronic targeting at the schools. But I definitely want to focus on how do we get more and more San Juan kids to come to camp, and making sure that that message and that they become aware of camp goes out to our schools. To be sure, now that we have web presence with the online registration, that's also advertisement in itself as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think John's point about getting folks up there even for the day, when I first took this position, we took a retreat up there for a day, and there were some employees who had worked in the district for many, many years who had never been up there. And so the opportunity to get up there for a day with some of schools throughout the district in the fall would really expose those students then to what is available during the summer. And I think John hit on a lot of those things, the opportunity for kids to have that a couple of days of independence. So I think that's really where we need to get as many folks exposed to it. We have so many, Ms. Costa, think about how many brand new principals we have who have never even, seen the Camp Winter. So as much exposure as we can to get adult leaders and adult teachers in our district up there, I think will help promote it as well. We never have a challenge filling the camp, but I think we want to continue to see a more and more diverse representation of our campers up there as well.
And on that point, I want to thank Kristen for introducing me to all the principals this year of the high schools. And we had a brief little meeting, at about 5 minutes with them. And El Camino has already signed up for their student government to spend a weekend at camp. Rotc High School has reached out to me. They're talking about doing 2 or 3 little events at camp in September. And a couple other districts have reached out and started the process. So I think, and particularly that since we had that hiatus last year, this is now the opportunity. So I'm optimistic that that's going to happen.
That's awesome. I just think that we need to make sure everyone hears about it. Because honestly, I'm a parent. I have a son in the district, and I don't know that I knew about Camp Withers before I became a board member. And that could have very well have been my own fault, missing some flyer or something, but it's such an amazing program. So I'm excited to hear that there's going to be additional and new outreach to just raise awareness about the program. And I do want to follow up on the question that was brought up in during public comment about options for individuals with special needs. Are there options? What is that?
I think there are options. One of the, remind me of the school that we talked with, Ralph Richardson, maybe it was, or yeah, it was Ralph Richardson. They've reached out to me and they're interested in bringing a group of special needs camps up to us. So to be sure, depending upon the special need, there are some challenges. We're on a hill. So our lake is at like 6,700 feet and the dining hall is at 6,780 up a pretty steep trail. So there are some challenges for the physically handicapped, to be sure. But I'm open to it. I don't think we've broached that topic enough, and hopefully some of the schools will start to hear about us, and particularly with their leadership. Obviously, during our summer camp program, before I came to this program, I managed a special needs camp for about 10 years. So I definitely understand some of the challenges that go with that. And so I think with the leadership of some of the teachers or the administrators within those particular schools and providing that assistance and expertise, it can be done for sure.
Awesome. And I only have one more question. It's wonderful to hear that, we're open to exploring to get as many kids up
Absolutely.
there and meet them where they're at. And last question is, I've heard you mention a couple times more San Juan kids. Are there other kids or who else goes besides?
Yeah, I mean, our program is open to the public. We try and promote it with, like I said, and any discounts go to San Juan students and not to other students. But, there definitely is an element of outside schools. Kids know about it. They hear about it. Parents hear about it. The word spreads.
So it's open to anybody that registers.
It is.
Got it.
And likewise, when we rent out our facility on the weekend groups in the fall, it's open. So we do have other school districts, Rockland and Folsom, and they do come in. We charge them twice as much, by the way, but they still come in. So that's what a great value it is. So again, we're working to change the tides on that.
I appreciate it. Thank you for all you do.
Dr. McKibben.
John, you talked about the notion that the camp is being underutilized. What is realistic in terms of scheduling and so forth? We know that there are times that the camp is under 20 feet of snow too.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is realistic in terms of how far into the fall months can you go? And is there a plan B when you get snowed out and so forth, if you do start utilizing it during the academic year?
I'm sure. I mean, we all, of course, know about the Donner Party, and that was in October. So come the beginning of October, I'm generally telling groups if they signed up for October to be aware that we may need to cancel. You never know what might come in. So I feel like we can go until mid-October, but that from October 1 to October 15th, it could be hit and miss. And so the plan really is that to be aware. Obviously nowadays the weather reports are a lot more accurate. You can look a lot farther out, so you can prepare a lot better for that. So but those are the months. If in particular, I mean, we have our weekends in between camp sessions are often filled, but in the month of August and in September, I don't know, maybe we're at 40% capacity. I mean, we could really be having groups come in one after the other if need be. And I'd have to staff, accordingly for that, obviously. But there are plenty of pockets there within the week and on the weekend where I feel like we could be utilizing camp more. And I think in the past, there's been, a mission school used to run their own science camp program. They do a week-long program, a 5-day program up there. So there have been, I think, in years past, more usage. But from what I've seen, we're busy and there's a lot of groups that use it, but there's room for more.
I think one of the things, Dr. McKibben, is there isn't, like, once summer's over, the only staff is John.
Yeah.
And so for schools to come up there, like in the past, I've gone up there in the fall and they kind of have to go up and be self-sufficient. So I've seen schools at times take maybe their food service worker or food service worker up there like that. So there's, you know, if we were a camp where, and it is self-sufficient and at times the funding has been tight in order for us to continue this running. We kept staff up there, we could do it, but probably wouldn't be, you know, self-sufficient at that point in time. So we have to get creative in ways that we can do that.
That said, if we do get more groups that want to come in on the weekends and in those time periods, I usually will hire one person who helps me with maintenance and taking down the tents and helping with cooking. And, you know, groups that come in that are 30, 40 people, a student government group, we can handle that with a real skeleton crew, and we'd be happy to do it.
John, you mentioned the contractors seem to be eager and so forth. I think you mentioned McCarthy and Flint and some of the others. What kinds of efforts have we made in order to pique the interest of the contractors? And, because they seem like a marvelous asset as we build the infrastructure of the camp.
You know, pre-COVID, we were rocking and rolling with that. Honestly, all three of those groups that I mentioned had come up, and they built us some new tent cabins. They cleared up some old piping, our old water line. They did a lot of different projects, and then everything sort of dried up with COVID. And last year we laid fallow, as I mentioned, and we're building that back up. So I felt like there was a lot of support. We met with, I think it was Frank Camarda had organized this meeting, and I gave a little presentation to all the contractors that showed up. There was a half a dozen or so leaders from the contracting companies. And some of us gave us some donations that year to buy some kayaks and a canoe. Others came up and did projects. They really love to do that. That's their expertise, obviously, but it also gives them opportunity to come up and be at camp for a weekend or an overnight. So I think we can build that back up. Like I mentioned, McCarthy is ready to go again this fall. The good problem to have would be, I'm sorry you can't come up this weekend because we've got a San Juan school that's using our facility. But those are all good problems that we want to welcome. But I feel like the bond construction companies have been pretty supportive of our district and of our camp program.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm not sure if you know, but I myself am still a camp counselor these days. There's an entire universe of people that only know me by my camp name, which is Blue Sparrow. And I really enjoy that. And you kind of unlocked all of the spirit of camp. You managed to do it in this frankly drab boardroom. So I appreciate your energy and bringing it to us and bringing just a little bit of the spirit to us here on the dais. Most of what I wanted to comment on has already been hit on, but I just wanted to kind of emphasize, which is, you know, we've got new leadership. And so it sounds like there's already been those connections made, but we have a ton of new administrators throughout the district. And I would just love to see and invite, you know, renewed outreach to our schools, communities across the board. In fact, I would love, to the extent that we can pitch in and help as a district, to kind of issue a challenge of maybe a new family weekend or a weekend tailored to our students with access and functional needs, et cetera. I think that would be super exciting in a new way to reach out. And then the last question that I had, and this is just in part because I was previously spending a lot of time doing emergency planning, and then tragically the camp that was very near and dear to my heart succumbed to a fire this last season. So I'm just curious if you can speak to a little bit about, you know, contingency plans and appropriate planning given kind of our drought conditions and all of, you know, the other kind of situational environmental contexts that we're currently living in terms of, you know, we're nearing a drought likely being declared across more counties, and given weather conditions, I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to that. I mean, it's my expectation that if something like that happened, we would obviously close, but I want to make sure you spoke a little bit to it in terms of fuel reduction and all
Sure.
of that, but I invite you to expand a little bit more if you'd like.
Sure. Well, fuel reduction is a long-term plan that we need to continue on. Last year, the district lent me their chipper for a week, and that was awesome. We got a lot of stuff done, but there's, it's 80 acres. There's still a lot more that needs to be done. In terms of contingency plans with fires, frankly, in the past, the buses used to drive up to camp. They would leave the bus there, and the drivers would go back down in a car, and we'd have those buses. And new policies, regulations, state mandates, whatever it might be, they now cannot leave the buses up there. So our back plan is that we would call Truckee and have them send up some buses. And I'm not particularly comfortable with that plan, but that's kind of where it's at. I mean, we're fortunate in that we live up there in the granite. There's a lot of forest around us, but we have the lake basin and we have some other granite flats and stuff. So, but I hate the thought of trying to herd a bunch of kids down into a lake basin to get out of a fire. So I'm open to support that we can have. If there's any way we could have a bus that we could park up there for the summer. I used to have a CDL. I wouldn't have any problem driving the bus out of there. I'd feel really comfortable having that. But at this point, we don't have that. And our backup plan is using Truckee Unified District to come on up and haul people away. The other issue that goes with it, as you know, is there's more and more power outages, and that I don't anticipate it being a problem with our summer camp program. But as we move into August and September, certainly while I'm up there multiple times, the power is being shut off and we can't run camp on my 2,000 watt generator. So I'm working with the electrical department, and hopefully this year we might be able to purchase a generator so that we can pump water and we can run our kitchen and have that backup plan. If the power is out and we have a group in session, it can still be, I've worked at camps before where their entire energy supply was from a generator. So it can be done. So that's a backup plan on that issue there. And we'll continue to work at reducing the fuel load and keeping our emergency plan options open.
I really appreciate those efforts. And I know a lot of the IOUs, the utilities have a lot of generator programs, et cetera. It sounds like you're working on getting that up and running, but it hadn't occurred to me that it's way up in the forest and PSPS is a problem too. Mm-hmm. So definitely appreciate that additional context. And it is my sincere wish that the next time I see you will be up in the mountain and you won't be in board presentation attire, but you'll instead be surrounded by a bunch of friendly camp faces. Thank you very much for your presentation.
All right, thank you. Thanks a lot.
I'm also interested in the bus driving position for Camp Winters.
Good to know. Maybe we'll sign you up. We are now at item I3, naming the new middle school at Encina. Ms. Schnapp.
I'm here tonight to present the superintendent's recommendation for the board to discuss naming our new middle school, Katherine Johnson Middle School. As you know, the site engaged with staff, students, and community over the past few months in a very thoughtful process to determine the new middle school name. The Encina community was very clear with their preference, with 69.3% favoring Katherine Johnson. Since then, the school design team, site leadership team, district sponsorship team, facilities committee, and cabinet have all had the opportunity to provide feedback. The responses have been overwhelmingly supportive of the new name, with the facility committee and the cabinet both unanimously endorsing and supporting the new name. Per our district board policy, all middle schools must have a great name. And at every step of the way during the process, our San Juan community has voiced their opinion that Katherine Johnson is truly a great name for our new middle school.
Thank you very much for bringing forward the item. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item at this time?
We have not had any comments submitted, and if you are with us on the Zoom environment and would like to offer a comment, now would be your chance by clicking that raise hand button. And we do not have any raised hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Okay, do any board members have questions or comments on this item? I think everybody's just racing, but are you going to give a comment? Are you racing to move it? Dr. McKibben, go ahead.
I feel embarrassed to ask this question, but I do not know the answer. Is Ms. Johnson still alive? Is not?
She passed a little over a year ago.
Okay. So that was Takes the next question. Never mind.
Seeing no further questions or comments, and I'll just remind folks who've joined us that this was also a discussion item at our last meeting prior to being brought forward for action this evening, and it is an action item. Is there a motion to approve Katherine Johnson Middle School as the new name of the separate middle school at Encina? We have a motion by Ms.
Second.
Grayson. Can we have more than 1 second, Ms. Simlick? I'm going to hand that to Ms. Costa. And it's been seconded by Ms. Costa. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous and very exciting.
Thank you.
With that, we are now at item I4, Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. Ms. Bassinelli is joining us via Zoom. Oh, hello, Ms. Bassinelli.
Hi there. Good evening, President Viasquez, board members, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. Tonight, we are presenting the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan to the board for action. This item was previously discussed at the May 11th board meeting. You will note that there are revisions that are notated in the document that are either in red with a strike through, or they have a highlight noting that it's an addition. I am available to answer any questions you may have about the plan.
Thank you very much. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We have not had any comments submitted on this item. And if you've joined us on Zoom, now is your chance to raise your hand to offer a comment. And seeing no hands raised, President Viasquez, we have no comment for this item.
Okay, do any board members have questions or comments on this item? Ms. Costa.
I was really pleased as I looked at the revisions and because in the meetings that I've been a part of and in the emails that I've read, it really represented stakeholder thoughts, and it really says a lot about senior leadership that we made those revisions as quickly as we did within 2 weeks to a grant that was actually on fast forward the whole time. So hats off to our senior leadership and to our staff for getting this closer and closer to what our stakeholders have been asking for. So thank you.
Dr. McKibben.
Just some clarifications that I have on the pilot flex system. How many high schools could we support with the funds that are proposed in that?
We could support all secondary schools, all middle and high school. It's unlikely they'll all choose to do so, but the funds are there to support all of them.
Okay, thank you. In terms of on page 9, I'm looking at my note and I don't know what it references. The number of students that could be served in the first year let me get the page. In the students, how many people are we thinking about in terms of tutoring with high school and college students?
We don't know at this time, so that since it was pending board discussion and action, that's still in development.
Okay. I was very impressed in terms of on page 10, the MTSS. Either I missed it or the notion of having MTSS and particularly credit recovery specifically for foster youth, for homeless students and so forth. When you say that it's particularly for them, would the MTSS, it would still be a one-to-one model, but you would have particular resources devoted to those as mentioned on page 10?
Yes, there are specific actions that target foster youth and homeless students. And in addition, there's the expansion of the MTSS services through the support centers.
But it would just be the services offered. They wouldn't be separated out for the MTSS. Is that right? Because I was confused by that. I'm sorry.
Could you tell me which one you're specifically looking at?
Looking on page 10.
I think it's the second from the bottom.
Exactly. Thank you. The second from the bottom.
So increasing and retaining staffing at the support centers is specific to, it's to include the students that are a part of the ELO grant. So it would be targeting specific students such as foster youth and homeless, but it would also be have an expansion in the target to include disengaged students. All the students that are identified as a part of the ELO, they would be included in the targeted groups that there would be outreach for. So it would include credit deficient students, students who are not on track for graduation, all those targeted groups that are a part of the ELO.
Okay, and then my last question was, it talked about community learning hubs, plural, but I only saw one mentioned in the grant. Where are the community hubs located?
We only wrote in one strategy under the Learning Hub strategy, and that was specific to the West program, which is going to be on the
It
West.
is the only one then, all right, because I saw it was plural there then, but there were no others mentioned, so I was wondering, am I missing something? And the answer is probably I'm missing a lot, but not on this one. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for bringing this forward and for bringing forward edits that definitely reflect a lot of stakeholder feedback, including ours from the last meeting. I want to just thank you in particular for that specific addition, doubling the peer tutoring support and specifically adding discussion of our homeless youth as well. And in general, it's just very well laid out to be able to easily see what was edited since our prior discussion. So it looks like just a bunch of highlights and red strike throughs, but I know it's a lot of time and attention that is reflected here, and I want to express my appreciation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is an action item. Is there a motion to approve the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan?
Oh, go ahead. No,
It's like watching a tennis match with you.
I'll second the item.
Okay, we're gonna go with, it's been moved by Mr. Hernandez and seconded by Ms. Costa. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, that was unanimous. Thank you very much. And with that, we are at item I5, COVID-19 update. Superintendent Kern.
Thank you, President Vasquez and members of the board. Tonight, I want to touch on two items related to a COVID update. First, I want to share with the board and the community, I've mentioned this multiple times, each week or every other week, we meet with Superintendent Dave Gordon from the County Office of Education and the other superintendents in Sacramento County. And we had that meeting again this morning, and we were joined by Dr. Casserier, our local health official, and it was great having her there because she was able to provide kind of real-time updates for us. And she was speaking to the changing guidance that will take place on the 15th. One of the specific issues that was asked was, okay, what's the guidance around spacing? Are there limitations? The response was, after the 15th, there won't be. And then the question was brought up, because this has been a question that we as a district have been asked. It's a question that we continue to ask, is what does it look like for mask guidance as the CDC has changed that guidance? I want to remind folks again, because we try and say this, we are required to follow the California Department of Public Health guidance, not CDC, but the CDPH guidance. So even when the CDC changes the guidance, if the CDPH doesn't, that doesn't impact us in terms of the changes. So we asked Dr. Casserier, what does it look like? And she said, as of this time, she does not believe that the mask requirements for schools will be changing on the 15th. Now, she did say that that could possibly change prior to the start of the next school year, but at this time, she didn't say that she thought that would change on the 15th. So I just wanted to share that because that is a question. So as we head into summer school and we have programs going on, we will still be required to follow the CDPH guidance, whatever that is. If that changes at some point in time related to masks at schools, we'll communicate that and make that change. So when looking at instructional models for next year, we've talked about wanting to have as many options as possible. But as we've followed along, and I believe we even sent out some information to the community recently about we're watching what the legislation says around virtual learning and what can be an option. We work with a group called Capital Advisors, and one of their individuals we work with is named Barrett Snyder, and he provided a real quality summary for us. And I actually shared that with the board, but I'm going to cut some pieces out of this because I really want the community to be aware as we look at next year and we're looking at models. You know, will the in-person learning, as we've said multiple times, full-time, back to school, that's our priority. That's our priority for all. We still will have a homeschool component, which we previously did before. We will have independent study. That will be modified a little bit. I'm going to address that. And within that ties in a virtual component. So as part of his May revision, Governor Newsom is proposing a rewrite of independent study law that upends the program for next school year and beyond and effectively removes a public school option for many students the law was originally intended to serve. The governor's proposal is well-intentioned and reflects an effort to address concerns amongst policymakers that distance learning didn't work well for many students and that students should be back in person. Everyone seems to agree that in-person instruction should be the default for students next year, absent a change in COVID-19. These changes that are proposed would affect all school districts, county offices of education, and charter schools. The problem with the proposal is that it has unintended consequences as it appears to look at all independent study slowly through the lens of distance learning. So they identify problems in the following areas. It removes the public school option for at-risk students. The proposed changes ignores the original purpose of the independent study law, which was to provide an alternative to daily in-person instruction while maintaining a public school option for students that are 1, working full-time to support their family, 2, avoiding classroom settings due to bullying, social, emotional needs, 3, medically fragile, chemotherapy, life-impacting illness, addiction recovery, etc., pregnancy or parenting, enrolled in community college courses concurrently, or lastly, traveling for competitive sports or work in the entertainment industry. The next area was timing of change is unworkable. And Barrett stated the introduction of the proposal creates significant uncertainty for families. And if the changes are enacted sometime between June 15th and July 1st, it will create an unworkable timeline for revisions to master schedules and staffing, subsequent board approval of revisions to the required policies, and a redo of the master agreements with parents if the new policy is even compatible with the family's needs. This work would need to be completed during the summer months when school site staffing will be greatly diminished and families could be difficult to communicate with. Under existing laws, schools may not claim attendance for IS pupils, that's independent study pupils, prior to receiving a master agreement signed by the parent or guardian. The next is an unreasonable workload for teachers. The requirement that teachers of independent study courses connect with students daily is not reasonable, nor would it yield the intended result. The next is short-term independent study is also in jeopardy, and families will use this. The proposal also effectively removes an option for short-term independent study when students are gone from their shorter period of time and cannot participate in daily instruction. Examples of this may be a family traveling internationally or even within the country for a family funeral. If they're gone a week or so, we've been able to do independent study during that time, short-term independent study, that option may be gone. And then lastly, related to virtual academies and course-based independent study, he states, we've received a lot of questions about creating virtual academies to provide an option for families next year. Virtual academies are a distinction without a difference, LEAs must still comply with the requirements of independent study in order to claim attendance through a virtual academy. So it creates some real unique challenges for us and what we may be able to offer. We'll continue to watch what happens, but we want to make sure that people who are concerned about what are the options, we will have obviously independent study as we have it now, which we may have to tweak for our high school age students, and a K-8 homeschool program for those students. If there's something else that we would be able to create and we could do so within a realistic time frame, we will try and do that. But we may not be able to pull that off based on when we find out this information to do the hiring and everything else that we need. So I wanted to provide that update for the board and the community.
Thank you, Superintendent Curran. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments at this time?
We do have 2 hands raised at this time, President Villescaz.
Okay, as a reminder, comments are limited to 2 minutes, and Mr. Allen, I'll invite you to call on our first participant when you're ready.
Thank you, President Villescaz. Our first comment will come from Kim Nichols. When you're ready, Kim.
Good evening, President Villescaz and members of the board. I would like to draw attention to a concerning lack of protocol my family experienced recently in the district's COVID-19 quarantine response. My son was recently forced to quarantine from school, even though it was determined that he was not a close contact of a fellow child who tested positive for COVID. I was notified that one of his teammates on baseball had tested positive, but that the league had determined that my child was not a close contact of the positive child. The following day, the league notified us that they had decided to cancel the team's upcoming games out of an abundance of care for the family involved, but they did not communicate that the team was quarantined because there was a close contact with the child. However, I was later notified by my child's school that he would not be able to return to campus for 10 days because, I apologize, bear with me because this gets convoluted, a principal at another school site apparently spoke with my son's Little League president and told the team members needed to quarantine from school, was told. I would like to emphasize the decision to make my son quarantine and stayed home was made without any official notification to me from the Little League that my child was a close contact, and without the principal of my child's school having any notification or even a conversation with any involved parties. And as it turns out, the positive test in question turned out to be a false positive. However, the league did not communicate this to anyone, and my child continued to quarantine without warrant. And I know that's separate from the district, but I do not believe that a Little League president should be able to speak not to me, my child's parent, but to someone in the district whom I don't know and get to decide that my child cannot attend school based on erroneous information. And I would ask the district to outline clear quarantine criteria and protocols to ensure that no other child is negligently forced to miss school going forward. Thank you for your time tonight.
And thank you for your comment. Our next comment will be from Mr. Ben Avey. When you are ready, sir.
Thank you, President Villescaz, members of the board. I just wanted to actually start off tonight by saying thank you. It was greatly appreciated, the clear and concise message that you sent to parents, clearly stating that as the district plans to reopen schools full-time in person on August 12th. I know a lot of parents breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that in writing. I mean, quite literally on social media, they were saying, finally, it's in writing. So I appreciate that. Thank you, parents. Thank you. They can plan around it. The next step is I really think is we need to be looking at distance learning and evaluating how effective it was. Mr. Allen has shared that the district was looking at hiring a third party to come in and do random sampling to get feedback on distance learning. I think this is a great idea. I would ask that the random sampling include parents and not just students and not just teachers. Parents have to be in the conversation. They're the ones that can give the feedback on what was really happening at home. I would also ask that the district offer a public portal where people can share their stories, even if they are not part of the random sample. I value random sampling, but you do need to provide people an opportunity to just share their words with you so that you can hear it. And lastly, I'll just follow up on the previous commenter and just note Superintendent heard me discuss this issue at the Superintendent's Parent Advisory Committee. There were some concerns that sometimes the school may take a bit too much latitude in their quarantine procedures beyond that which is required or recommended by CDPH. I don't know if that was the situation here. I'm not informed on it, but I think that is something we have to be mindful of, that while we want to follow the safety protocols, we don't want to go too far and unintentionally interrupt children's education. So thank you again for the notification, allowing me to speak, and I look forward to hearing about the survey of parents for distance learning. Thank you and have a nice evening.
And thank you for your comment. And that was our final comment on this item, President Villescaz.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I will turn it to my colleagues for any questions or comments. Ms. Creason.
Superintendent, that's really concerning, that legislation, for a whole lot of reasons. So I know that we usually don't engage in taking any positions on bills or advocacy in that way, but I'm wondering, is this a time to maybe do that? It's not, yeah, I mean, because that swings the pendulum really far the other way. That's going to cause a disservice on so many levels beyond just distance learning for folks that aren't ready to come back for COVID reasons, which is also very valid. Yeah. So
Capital Advisors is actually a group that does advocate. And so they represent multiple districts. And so that we are engaging them as well as other groups so that they are getting a very, very clear message to the governor and the legislators. And so, I know, for example, the AXA, the Administrators Association is, which I meet with them weekly as well. They're all stating the same message about how the negative impacts this would have. So it's not for a lack of us sharing our viewpoints. It will ultimately see what the governor and the legislators agree upon. I was in a meeting recently with the state superintendent and a local legislator, and they did not agree at all on this issue. So we'll have to continue to watch what this ends up looking like, and we'll have to follow through. But I would say we are actively engaging as many folks as we can and letting them know where we stand on this.
So I hear you, and I understand that level of advocacy, but us as a board, I mean, it's my understanding that there's no advocacy letter that's signed by SJUSD, right? Or am I wrong about that? A position paper that's sent in specifically on a piece of legislation with suggested amendments with our name on it.
Can I also just clarify? So if I totally hear where you're going, and if it helps at all, I just want to note that it would be provisions of budget trailer bill, not a piece of legislation, which kind of changes the process and is usually not the way they go about changing it. But given, I think, the sensitivity of the topic, just for context.
No, that's helpful. I didn't realize it was trailer bill language, not like an actual bill. I should know better. I apologize. I had one other question. Earlier in your report, you had mentioned, we have to follow the state guidance, but I didn't hear you say where the county guidance comes into play. And I know that's something we point to quite a bit. So could you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I don't believe that the county would have guidance that would be outside of CDPH.
Okay, I guess I'm just bringing this up because throughout the year we have said we have to follow county and state guidance, but this time we just said state. So I just wanted to just provide clarity since that's something we've said.
Yeah, so Dr. Casserier, who works in Sacramento County, they would, so on something like CDPH, she's not going to make a recommendation or say, hey, in Sacramento County, we don't have to have masks in school. And I see Trent jumping in here as well because he's a part of this. that would go against what CDPH really, I guess when we say state and county guidance, it's because, and President Villescaz, you can help me on that too. Normally that's an alignment.
Well, and I think on this particular topic, from what I've seen and been following, essentially when June 15th hits, most counties will be kind of deferential to CDPH. And so it would then kind of default back to what the previous guidance was, specifically around schools. I don't think counties are going to proactively go and make a specific policy just related to schools. It'll instead kind of defer back to the standing state guidance.
That's really helpful because there's not
Yeah.
going to.
And I invite our in-house public health
Trent, do you
expert
wanna-
to jump in as well,
Yeah.
Mr. Allen.
No, I was just going to say something very similar, President Vasquez. It really is a tiered structure, and we've been very fortunate that Sacramento County has very much aligned with California Department of Public Health on virtually all of the guidance. There is the ability for a county to differentiate its guidance, and if that were to be the case, we would also have to follow the Sacramento County's guidance as well as the state guidance. So we've been very fortunate where it has lined up very closely. But there is the possibility that if they were to do something differently locally, we would still have to follow that guidance as well as the state guidance.
And that's what I was getting at. So really it's state, just leaving some buffer because I just don't want anyone to get confused that really it comes down to the county guidance, which we know wouldn't be more lenient than the state guidance, but could be more restrictive, which we did see once or twice, if I remember correctly.
That's a good point. And I would say you are correct. That's probably the best way to put it. We haven't seen it be more lenient, but at times it may have been more strict.
Thank you.
I'll do a quick check. Seeing no further questions or comments, thank you very much for the update. We are at item I6, exterior LED lighting retrofit project 4217 contract. Mr. Camarda.
Yes, and thank you, and good evening, President Vasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. You've seen these come forward in prior board meetings. I'm going to bring Mr. Ralston up to present the item. Mr. Ralston's umbrella of responsibility encompasses our energy reduction strategies as the energy coordinator for our district. I'll have him come up and explain the project to you, and we'll answer any questions that you might have after his presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, President Vasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. Tonight's item is from Maintenance and Operations and is the proposal of replacing exterior lights to LED efficient lighting for 27 schools. The superintendent is recommending the board engage in a two-step process. This includes holding a public hearing to determine whether the anticipated energy cost savings of the proposed exterior LED lighting retrofit project has been reasonably established, which I will discuss soon, and to consider whether to implement the proposed project as an energy conservation facility under Government Code Section 4217.1. The superintendent is also recommending the board adopt resolution number 3061, authorizing the use of Government Code 4217, and resolution number 3052, awarding the contract for the exterior LED lighting retrofit project to Efficient Lighting Designs Incorporated. The district has implemented several LED lighting retrofit projects in our buildings, starting with interior spaces at the high schools in 2015. The district has realized savings from these projects, as shown in our spending on energy being reduced while our square footage of building space has increased across the district. In combination with other energy saving projects such as solar and our new buildings being designed to be more energy efficient, the district has avoided almost $1.5 million in utility costs. In the 2015-16 school year, when we began implementing our energy projects, we used 25.5 million kilowatt hours. Each year since, it has decreased by about 1 million kilowatt hours per year. With our last available year of data, which is pre-COVID, we used only 22 million kilowatt hours. Additionally, we spent $4.7 million with SMUD in 2015-16. And in the year 2019-20, we spent $90,000 less, but our district has increased almost 500,000 square feet, and the price of power has increased 20% during that time. That shows the large cost avoidance mentioned earlier for the general fund in utilities is because of the work we have implemented. It would be reasonable to assume this type of work will provide the anticipated energy cost savings as necessary for Government Code 4217. And after the public hearing on this topic, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ralston. I declare the topic of exterior LED lighting retrofit project a public hearing, and it is now open for public comment. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted for this item, and giving those who are with us on Zoom a moment to click that raise hand button if they wish to offer a comment. And seeing no raised hands at this time, President Villescaz.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. There being no comments, I declare the public hearing closed. Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments at this time? Dr. McKibben.
Now, these are all exterior retrofits. Does that mean that all of our interior have been completed at all the schools? And these are the savings that you're talking about, help me, the $1.5 million in the cost. Those are from the interior.
You're right. So 3 phases of interior work has been done mainly through Prop 39 funding. If you remember that, the Clean Jobs Energy Act, that was done. We started doing exterior lighting on select projects, like randomly attaching to it. But this is a full-scale exterior for 1/3 of our district schools. And we have finished doing interior that we
And
found.
as I recall, that not only were the LED lighting more energy efficient, but they lasted longer too. Do these dollar amounts take into effect both of those, or are we going to likely to reap benefits, particularly in terms of how much longer lasting they are?
Oh, sure, absolutely. We're expecting, with a 7-year payback, we're expecting an almost 20-year life. So it will start increasing even more as we're finished paying off these projects per se. We use bond dollars and free grant money for these. So eventually this long life will reduce our maintenance costs also, and we'll start realizing some of those savings as well. And we've seen it. We also have a 7-year warranty on the light bulb itself as part of these contracts, and that's just unheard of.
So you've talked about what the interior brought us. Do we expect a similar kind of saving for the exterior, or do we expect it to be larger or less than?
It will be much more. If you walk in any classroom, teachers sometimes have their lights on or off and the windows open. So the interior spacing is harder for us to calculate. But on exterior, it's very simple. We run off photocells and 12 hours in average for 365 days. So shorter in the summer, longer in the winter. We have then changing these from 280 to 300 watt lights down to about 12 watt lights. We anticipate a much bigger savings on these type of projects than the interior.
You talked about this being energy savings. We've also done a good deal on the solar side. Do we have any estimates or has that been, I just don't remember, any estimates on what the solar side continues to save us?
Sure. So Bella Vista was our first solar project, the large carport.
Right.
It was anticipated to cover about 80% of our energy use at Bella Vista. It averages 106% of our energy use at Bella Vista. So we're making a few pennies over a 12-month time frame. Rio and Miraloma just coming online. It's a little early to know exactly what kind of percentage we're getting, but they're supposed to both be about 30% of the energy use of their sites. And I would guess, based off of the same contracting and design concepts we use at Bella Vista, will be a little more successful than the 20-25% we predicted with the state.
And I recall that we had a contract with SMUD that allowed us to have approximately half of our energy related to solar. Are those savings separate from that $1.6 million and from those grants? I can't remember.
Yeah, we're in year 3 of our SMUD Solar Shares agreement.
Right.
It won't start actually finding any savings till about, I think, year 5 or 6. It's a 20-year agreement, and it's as rates raise, that's when we start having our flat line pay for itself. Based off of that, 47% of the power we get from SMUD is some type of green renewable. So it could come from solar or wind or the dam kind of hydro. So there's different variations where it comes from. So I think we did a little penciling pre-COVID. We were about 56% of green energy into the district with our solar panels once they came online. So we're progressing pretty nicely in that direction.
And you mentioned that the power cost had increased 20%. Does that have we benefited from the solar to mitigate that 20% cost? Is that figured into that number, or is would that be a separate number?
The solar will be part of we're removing ourselves from the SMUD bill. So there's the savings at 1.5 is going to be part of the solar because those are new. So 1.5 over 3-4 years is, I think, a good starting point for us to be building off of, because that cost avoidance will just grow year after year as SMUD increases its rates. And they're still the cheapest power source in the state to their customers, but they have a cost of business and that gets passed on. So it's been increased a couple pennies per kilowatt hour every year. And we've been able to, I wouldn't say avoid it, but it, like I said, our SMUD bill, our PO that we cut every year is lower each year instead of growing. So it's certainly working in our favor. And I think LED lighting is having a big effect on that.
Yeah, this is just great news, and very pleased to be part of certainly one of the most green school districts in the state. Am I correct in making that statement?
We're very assertive in trying. I mean, we look at it obviously a green and the right thing for the environment. I think Frank and I look at it as the amount of money that we're saving the district is a motivating factor too, because as we reduce all those costs and head towards that net zero at some point, there's going to be more money that goes into the classroom, and it's because of our energy decisions that we've been making the last couple of years.
This is really, thank you very much for all your work on this.
Appreciate it.
Seeing no further questions or comments, I want to just express my appreciation, maybe not at face value the most exciting action, but in addition to the cost savings, the waste prevention as well is also very, very important. So it's very exciting.
Yes.
This is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3051, authorizing the use of government code sections 4217.10? It's been moved by Dr. McKibben. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Ms. Creason. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3052, awarding a contract for the exterior LED lighting retrofit project to Efficient Lighting Designs Incorporated? It's been moved by Dr. McKibben. I need a second. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Hernandez. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Thank you very much. With that, we are at item I7, the district's proposal with SJPEC for successor contract 2021-2022. Mr. Oropolo, thank you for joining us, and please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, President Villescaz, members of the board, Superintendent Kurt, Ms. Cunningham. I'm here tonight to present the superintendent's recommendation to adopt the district's bargaining interests with the San Juan Education Coalition for 21-22. The district's interests were presented to the board for discussion on May 11th, and so this is an action item, and I can answer any questions if needed.
Thank you, Mr. Oropolo. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted for this item, and I do not have any hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do any board members have questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt the bargaining interests of the Board of Education for negotiations with the San Juan Professional Educators Coalition for 2021-2022? It's been moved by Ms. Creason. Is there a second? Second. It's been seconded by Dr. McKibben. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. We are at item I8, the district's proposal with CSEA for successor contract 2021-2022. Mr. Oropolo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. I'm here tonight to present superintendent's recommendation to adopt the district's bargain interest with the California School Employees Association, Chapter 127, for the 21-22 contract openers. The district's interests were presented to the board on May 11th, and again, this is an action item, and again, I can answer any questions if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Oropolo. Mr. Allen, are there any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted, and we have no hands raised at this time.
Okay, do any board members have questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, there is a motion to adopt the bargaining interests of the Board of Education for negotiations with the California School Employees Association, Chapter 127 for 2021-2022. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Ms. Costa. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. We're at item I9, presentation of the San Juan Supervisors Association initial proposal for successor contract 2021-2022. Mr. Orapollo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. I'm here to present the San Juan Supervisors Association's proposal for contract openers for 21-22. At this time, I can answer any questions on their behalf if needed.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, are there any comments on the public comments on this item?
We had no submitted comments, and we have no hands raised at this time.
Okay, do any board members have questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, so this is for discussion, but I appreciate the desire to keep our business moving. It will return on June 8th for public comment. We are at item I-10, presentation of the district's proposal with the San Juan Supervisors Association for successor contract 2021.
Thank you, President Villescaz.
2022. Go ahead.
So I'm here to present the district's bargaining interests for the San Juan Supervisors Association for 21-22 reopeners for discussion. And again, I can answer any questions if you have any at this time.
Mr. Allen, do we have any visitor comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted, nor do we have any hands raised at this time.
Do any board members have questions or comments? Seeing none, public comment and action is scheduled for June 8th. We are now at item I-11, presentation of the Teamsters Union Local Number 150 initial proposal for successor contract 2021-2022. Mr. Orapollo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. Again, the discussion item is the presentation of the Teamsters Union Local Number 150 proposal for contract openers for 21-22. And again, I can answer any questions if you have any at this time.
Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted, nor do we have any hands raised.
Thank you. Any board members have questions or comments? Just for our public's awareness, do you mind, like, in a sentence distinguishing between the district's proposals and then, it seems like we're doing the same thing twice, but there's a small distinction. Can you just?
Absolutely. So the first item up, which I'm bringing is the union or the bargaining groups, what their openers are. And then the second is what the district is proposing. Those begin the negotiations through collective bargaining agreements that we have. So this is the beginning of the process. The first is again, the bargaining group followed by the districts, and then we work together for an agreement.
And President Villescaz, I can say sometimes we brought these separate, but in order to expedite, as some of these bargaining groups have asked us to do, and we may see more of this in the future as our groups have said, hey, we've had like a 4 board meeting cycle, and we're like, we could do this a little quicker to start the bargaining process sooner. So that's part of this as well, because it does look a little unusual.
Yeah. And I just wanted a little clarification for our friends following along at home. This item will return on June 8th for public comment. We are at item I-12, presentation of the district's proposal with Teamsters Union Local Number 150 for successor contract 2021-2022. Mr. Orapollo.
Again, thank you, President Villescaz. Again, for discussion is the district's bargaining interest with the Teamsters Local Number 150 for 21-22. Reopeners for discussion. Again, I can answer questions if you have any at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Orapollo. Mr. Allen, do we have any public comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted, nor do we have any hands raised.
Do any of my colleagues have comments or questions at this time? Seeing none, public comment and action is scheduled for June 8th. We're at item I-13, implementation of agreements with CSEA, SJPEC, supervisors, and Teamsters in response to returning to in-person learning 4 days per week. Mr. Orapollo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. I'm here tonight to present the side letters of agreement with the California School Employees Association, Chapter 127, the San Juan Professional Education Coalition, Teamsters Local 150, and the San Juan Supervisors Association. And again, I can answer any questions if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Orapollo. Mr. Allen, do we have any visitor comments on this item?
We've had no comments submitted, nor do we have any hands raised at this time.
Do any board members have questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, action is scheduled for June 8th. We are now at item I-14, implementation of agreements with SJAA cabinet, confidential and unrepresented groups in response to returning to in-person learning 4 days per week. Mr. Orapollo.
Thank you, President Villescaz. The final item tonight is the agreements with the San Juan Administrators Association, Cabinet, Confidential, and the unrepresented groups. And again, I can answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Are there any individuals wishing to provide public comment on this item at this time?
We have no hands raised nor submitted comments for this item.
Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments? Seeing none, action is scheduled for June 8th. Thank you, Mr. Orapollo.
Thank you, President Villescaz.
With that, we are at item J, board reports. Do any of my colleagues have board reports? Ms. Costa.
Dr. McKibben and I served as your representatives to Delegate Assembly on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday 2 weeks ago. And once again, I'm always very grateful to be part of the San Juan District after spending that amount of time. We really are ahead of the game. I also attended the retirement celebration with many of my colleagues, and I'd really like to thank, I'm sorry, Mr. Orapollo left, because I'd really like to thank our Human Resources Department. It was a lovely celebration for more people than I have ever seen at a retirement celebration. I'm sorry it couldn't have been in person because I knew so many of those people. And then lastly, on Friday night, several of us attended the Miraloma IB parent dinner. And on top of recognizing the IB students, it was an opportunity to recognize two of the leaders of Miraloma, Lynn Tracy and Dave Matthews, who are retiring. And it was bittersweet. And I'm sure that Ms. Villescaz will add to that, but their leadership will be missed. Thank you.
Ms. Creason.
Ditto to some of the items that Ms. Costa brought up, and it was wonderful just to be in person again and celebrate. It's just in time for the celebrations. I'm going to start with a wonderful report. Got to spend some time on the Mission Elementary campus, and it was fabulous. It was absolutely fabulous. I helped with lunch duty. They have these beautiful murals. This is one of the this school really prides itself on trips. So every year there's a trip that the kids go on to. So they have a bunch of murals that are absolutely beautiful to represent their many, many trips. And it was just great to be back on a campus. My next two items are really, really heavy. So I just want to publicly renounce the incident that happened at Rio that a lot of people I know have seen on the news. Nazi flags don't belong. They just don't belong. And I'm sure I'll only speak for myself in this instance. I know our district sent out a statement, a very strong statement, and I just want to make a statement that absolutely 100% renounce that activity, that behavior, those sentiment, and I am so sorry for the hurt that caused. Also want to recognize that a year ago today, George Floyd was murdered and shook our world forever. And I would love to ask President Villescaz if we can close in his honor and in his memory. That video, I know people who heard it or saw it, especially when he called out for his mom, that was a call to all moms. And although the Black community, my community, has experienced a lot of this trauma, there was something different about that day. And so I hope that today we can remember him, remember his daughter, remember his family. That was not just a moment in time. Let's remember to do our part in the name of justice. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Creason. Dr. McKibben.
In addition to some of the activities that we've already heard about, I wanted to mention that on the last two Wednesdays, I have gone to middle school track meets, and it was really impressive at both, and I went to them in the area I was in. The first one was at Pasteur, using the Joe Sura track that was built by Rotary as the primary place where the cross country was run, and watching those kids at 92 degrees running a 3/4 mile track twice. And the and the enthusiasm of them doing that and so forth, and the parents' concern on their faces while they're watching their children wilt was amazing. But it shows how important middle school activities are, and the tremendous number of parents that came out. Went the next week to Orangeville Open, and I was interested to see how they used that property for it. And they wound around the various things through the park course, around the various orchards and so forth that are out there. And it was done very impressively. And but again, somewhere between 100 and 200 parents were there on the various places on the track. And it speaks to a number of things, not only the parents having an opportunity to get out, but also that indeed we have definitely made the right decision in terms of bringing middle school sports back.
Thank you, Dr. McKibben. I want to acknowledge both the retirement ceremony and the Mira Loma IB ceremony as well. Every time I address our retirees, I find myself getting a little bit verklempt is the word that I come up with it. One, I think, as was alluded to, it's an unprecedentedly large group. But second, I just can't think of a better way to spend a career than to leave positive impressions on our youth and on our community, and contributing in the way that so many of our staff have, both certificated employees and everybody, all of our classified employees, all of our administrators as well. I mean, it truly takes a village. And then I'm just, further kind of impressed upon me when it hurts a little bit to not be able to, I think, give them an appropriate or even in-person acknowledgement. And so at this time, I want to just publicly say thank you to all of the dedicated employees that have served this district so wonderfully through the years, and in particular as well at my alma mater, Ms. Tracy and Mr. Matthews. As I said at the IB dinner, I'm a proud member of the Dave Matthews IB legacy. There's a lot of us running around, a lot still changing the world. I think of Alexandra Hun, who is our newest national poet laureate, who is also part of that legacy as well, and so many others. That's just the recent kind of top of the list. But it was also nice to see the students in person, to be able to acknowledge their accomplishments. And then also I walked away completely confident that the IB legacy will continue and be very strong there at that school. So that was also absolutely lovely. I will also take the opportunity to publicly address the incident at Rio, and just state that the Nazi flag isn't just a historical artifact relegated to history. It's a physical manifestation and a current symbol of hate and bigotry that unfortunately is still alive today. It inflicts real and immediate pain on our community and is not necessary to teach a lesson. While we are focused on our racial justice and equity work, there are always reminders that we have a lot of work to do, and this is one of them. And we will remain steadfast in that work. And we've got a couple more items, but I acknowledge and receive your requests to adjourn in the memory of George Floyd once we've gone through them. We are at item K, future agenda items. Do any board members wish to add any items to the future agenda? Seeing none. We are now at item L, visitor comments. Mr. Allen, are there any visitor comments?
If you've joined us on the Zoom environment, this would be your final opportunity to offer a comment for an item that was not on tonight's agenda. And you can, of course, do that by clicking the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen on your mobile device or your desktop Zoom client, or *9 if you have dialed into the Zoom meeting. And we have no hands raised at this time, President Villescaz.
Okay, with that, we do not need to return to closed session. So I adjourn this meeting in memory of George Floyd.
Thank you for joining us tonight. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education is set for June 8th. We do anticipate being on Zoom and broadcasting to YouTube. We do hope you'll join us then, and thank you for joining us tonight.